Cheers, friends. I'm Tony Saccomanno from Left Hand Brewing Company, here to talk about some beer. Got Milk Stout Nitro.
Of course.
Cheers.
Of course.
Cheers.
Yeah.
So, first thing, I don't like to have a full glass when I'm tasting beer to get to know it. So I'm going to take a drink. Let's cheers. Take a drink. All right. All right. Well, first of all, that's delicious.
For the people out there, yeah, that is delicious. That was your guys' staple beer, too.
It is, yeah.
So just for people watching, today you're going to be walking us through how to taste beer correctly and what to look for and in different types of beers. We have two different beers here. I'll let you go ahead and introduce those later as well, too.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead and we can jump right in.
All right. So we're going to check out just different aspects of beer. First of all, an overwhelming portion of your perception comes through the aroma. So if you're not smelling a beer, you're not enjoying the full essence of the beer. First thing we're going to start, though, is both these are stouts. I love stout beer, and we have two killing stouts here on tap, and I wanted to drink stout beer. So here we are. We're starting with Milk Stout Nitro, which I'm sure a lot of you know. Check out the color. Check out what it looks like. So we're going to hold it up. This is a black beer, dark brown, right? Dark brown. If you see around the outside of the glass, you're going to see some brown, some highlights. So I'm not going to call it a black beer, but I'm going to call it nearly black beer. Holds foam on the outside of the glass quite a bit. This is a pretty viscous beer.
It is a very foamy beer,
right?
Which is good for a stout, though. You know, because it gives it like that milkshake kind of flavor, taste-esque to it. You know?
Yeah, it adds to the body of the beer as well. Nitrogen is an important factor in this beer. This is one of our nitrogenated beers. What that means is that we use a higher concentration of nitrogen rather than CO2. It is a blend of the two, but this one is mostly nitrogen.
Okay, I feel like I didn't know that, and I feel like a lot of people don't know that when it's nitro, there's still like carbon in there.
Yeah.
You know, it's still like carbonated.
Yeah.
So okay, that's good to know.
It's almost an inverse relationship of the normal relationship in a CO2 beer.
Okay.
A lot of times when you're pouring CO2 beer, there's some nitrogen in that as well.
Okay, cool. What does that do to the beer?
Nitrogen. First of all, as we look at this beer, what do you think about the bubble size of the head? They're large
big
or
head,
small?
Larger head, larger bubbles, yeah.
What about the bubbles inside of the head? You know, each individual bubble, as opposed to this beer, where you see a little bit.
Yeah, I guess it's smaller. I can see that.
Pretty small, right? I think, so nitrogen creates really small bubbles.
Okay.
What that does is it creates a more velvety texture to the beer. Kind of almost, I don't want to say chewy, but I'm going to say chewy. A little bit velvety. That's my favorite word, actually. Velvety texture to the beer.
That's a good word for it. That's a good word for it.
I think so too. We do this as a carbonated beer as well, and it's amazing the differences between the two.
I've had both, yeah. It is, would you say, I don't know, I guess the way I would say is like with the nitrogen, it kind of just tastes more milky. Is that smooth and milky? Is that like how to do it justice, or how exactly would you explain the difference in taste between those?
Sure. So let's define taste.
Okay.
So the four aspects that I like to talk about when we're tasting beer or experiencing beer. First is the visual. We're going to look at the beer. Second is the aroma. Third is taste. And then the fourth is the mouthfeel.
Okay.
So when I think about that milky taste, I think I get a little bit of that lactose character, that cream, dulce de leche character in both those beers. However, with the nitrogen, it really emphasizes the creamy texture.
Yes.
Creamy mouthfeel rather than the creamy taste.
That's a good way to put it. Okay.
Cool. Shall we get into this beer?
Yeah, let's do it.
First thing that we're going to do is excite the beer a little bit.
Oh boy.
We're going to hold it underneath our nose just to an area where we start to perceive the beer. Bring it up, all right, and analyze the beer. Hold it. Cut. What are you picking up?
Coffee?
Yeah, absolutely. Great call. I get a lot of coffee in this beer. That's from the roasted malt that we use in this beer.
So there's not actually coffee in this beer?
Correct.
It's just roasted malt.
Yep.
That tastes like coffee, or that smells like coffee.
Very reminiscent of coffee.
Cool.
I get quite a bit of coffee. For me, this is very espresso-like rather than cold press or anything like that. It's like a clean espresso character. I also get a handful of milk chocolate too. I really think milk chocolate. The simplest. tastes like a mocha, you know? It's like if you were to put it into one thing, it's mocha.
Okay.
It's coffee, it's cream, it's chocolate.
Yeah.
It's that character.
That's a good way to put it.
That's where I'm at.
Okay.
So that's the first profile. Then we're going to kind of get into this beer a little bit deeper.
So there's two ways to smell it. There's like the general, like just kind of let the aromas come in, and then there's the get deep down inside there.
There's a lot more than that. However, different components are triggered by your olfactory glands, or trigger your olfactory glands differently.
Okay.
So you're gonna, in a very short list, we're gonna start from a distance.
Okay.
Then we're gonna do a drive-by, like that.
Okay.
You're gonna do that drive-by. Then you're gonna do a quick sniff, like a 1 second in the nose, pretty much in the beer sniff. Then you're going to do a longer 2 second sniff. Now, if you're at a bar, you're not going to go through this whole process. I totally understand that.
But for
if
the
you're
sake of reviewing beers,
yeah. Each one of these will highlight different aspects of the beer. Okay. Some are better for roast characters. Some are better for caramel-like characters. Some will help you spot any potential defects in the beer if you're going to a new brewery or you're judging your own home brew.
Okay.
Different ways of smelling beer will give you different profiles. They'll make different profiles stand out. Really, the two that I like to use regularly, if I was limited to two at the bar, first of all is the 1 second nose in the beer. So that sort of a thing. For me, that's really highlighting the sweet condensed milk latte-like character, caramel, latte, chocolate. The other one I like to do, try not to breathe in your nose. Take a drink of the beer. Well, take a breath. Take a drink of the beer, and then swallow the beer, exhale through your nose. Okay. It's called retronasal. It's going to trigger the back half of your orthonasal, well, your nasal passage. Orthonasal being the front, retronasal being the back. Okay. So that's what we'll do. Take a breath, take a drink of the beer, swallow the beer, exhale through your nose.
Okay, while you're doing that, what should you be looking for and when? Like, what should you be looking, like, which flavors should you be looking for during it? Or, like, if that makes sense, does that make sense? Because, like, obviously exhaling through your nose, you're obviously going to probably be focusing more on the aromas a little bit, more so. But, like, when is, like, the good time, like, what is the most optimal time to start detecting or start really trying to pick out certain flavors in the beer?
Sure. I know this beer very well. I drink a lot of this beer. I serve a lot of this beer. I talk people through a lot of this beer. However, when I'm tasting a beer new, I like to kind of have an open slate. And when I'm telling somebody how to drink this beer, I like to not give you trigger points. Because if I tell you what to taste,
you'll start to
boom, it's going to be there for you.
Exactly.
And I use these different ways of smelling beer to kind of highlight things that I might not expect to get out of that beer.
Okay.
Different ways the beer becomes more complex.
Okay.
Which is always pleasant.
Yes.
I enjoy that.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
However, it would be surprising to find anything other than what we've already targeted in this beer. This beer is very coffee, very caramel, sweet condensed milk more than caramel, I think, and milk chocolate. Those are the primary features. You're going to find those in the retronasal, but you might find them differently. I know this beer well, so there's nothing really good that's going to surprise me through this process. However, when you're getting to know a beer, it really will come. Those different ways of smelling beer will come through.
Okay, cool. All right, let's do it then.
All right. It's a different experience.
It is. It is a different experience. And I mean, the fun thing about that too is you not only get the flavors in the beer, but you also get the flavors in the beer at different times, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Like, for instance, I got the coffee was primarily the aftertaste, not the beginning. At the beginning, I primarily got like the milk chocolate and the like condensed milk and the condensed cream, and then at the end, I started to get the coffee taste.
Absolutely.
So it does kind of put it in more of a phase then.
Yeah. Have you ever had Vietnamese prepared coffee?
I have not.
You take this little press and you put it over the top of a cup with a little bit of sweetened condensed milk in the base of that cup. And essentially you add hot water to this coffee and use this little press as it kind of drips through the coffee grounds onto sweetened condensed milk.
Okay.
That's where I was at when I was drinking this beer. I was totally there. It was totally Vietnamese prepared coffee.
Okay, that's awesome. Would you say you get that every time you try it, or is it just sometimes
it was a little,
you do?
that time specifically. There's a lot of beer that we brew at Left Hand, we pour, and that I drank at Left Hand, and I love this beer. But I've been drinking more Pilsner. We've been brewing some more IPAs. I've been drinking that. So I haven't went back to Milk Stout in a minute. I've drank Sawtooth, drank other beers, but it's been a minute since I've went back to Milk Stout. So I think you could tell by my expression.
Yeah,
I was pleasantly surprised.
Really
it was delightful. I know the beer and I love the beer, but that was very delicious.
So would you say that would you wish it in your mouth when you drink the beer? Would you recommend that?
No. What you don't want to do is agitate the carbonation too much, so that it's just foam in your mouth, of course. But rather than swish, I think chew.
Chew it. Okay.
A little
That's
bit.
a good way to put it.
A little bit. Hold it in your mouth a little bit. One of the things about beer that we're dealing with, especially in beer tasting as opposed to wine tasting, is that bitterness is a key component in this. We get a little bit of bitterness from the hops. We also get a little bit of bitterness from the dark coffee-like roasted malt. That's going to add a little bit of bitterness.
So you said this. So this does have bitterness in it. How many IBUs does it have?
It's a low number.
It's a low number.
It's a low number.
But enough to detect.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. With the lactose sugar in this beer, there is some residual sweetness. To keep this beer in balance, it does require some bitterness. And another thing about IBUs, or a thing about IBUs, IBUs are strictly a judge of the amount of isomerized alpha acids inside of the beer.
Okay.
Alpha acids are a component of hops.
Okay.
It only judges the bitterness of hop compounds.
Okay.
So when you, other things can be bitter. Coffee can be bitter. Well, in beer, it's pretty much roasted malt and hops that are really going to give you that bitterness. Sometimes alcohol can be perceived that way, but it's a little bit different. So the bitterness compounds that come from roasted malt or coffee-like flavors are not judged by an IBU.
Okay.
IBU is a kind of single-dimensional unit of measurement.
That makes sense. Okay, cool. All right, so in regards to this beer, in specifically being like the style of beer, is there a different way you want to try to drink it, or a different way you want to try to specifically taste it or pick out certain things because of the style of beer?
One of the characteristics of a milk stout is a big body, medium plus at least. So this is going to have a nice viscous mouthfeel. Obviously that dulce de leche, sweetened condensed milk, latte component, that's coming through the lactose as well. So it's nice as you go into a milk stout to know what to expect. Stout and milk, right?
Yeah.
Milk and stout.
Milk and stout.
Right? Components of stouts tend to be very roasty chocolate, dark chocolate, baker's chocolate, milk chocolate even, espresso, cold pressed coffee, things like that. And then that lactose character is giving you that latte or sweetened condensed milk, dulce de leche, those same sort of characters. So when I order a style, I have a set of expectations based on that style.
Okay.
And oftentimes I'm pleasantly surprised. I kind of expect them at some levels to be there, but I'm looking for, I'm trying to get as specific as I possibly can, try to get deeper into the beer. But yeah, you should definitely notice those characters of stout and milk.
Yeah, of course. You were talking about imperfections earlier. Like you said, like when you smell it, you might smell some imperfections. What do you mean by like imperfections, or what do you mean by like what's something in a beer that you should look for that would be a detraction from that beer's like overall quality?
Sure. Well, first of all, brewing beer is hard.
Oh, it's very hard.
Any home brewers out there? My rule is that if a home brewer has told you that they've never made a bad beer, they're doing one of two things. Their palate isn't good enough to pick it up, or they're lying to your face.
Yeah.
One of those two things is happening.
Yeah.
It's part of the learning process. Left Hand has been around since '93. We're established. We're brewing some good beer, and we have our processes dialed in. I just finished making a black IPA. When I was judging my black IPA, I thought it was actually really good. But there are some components to be aware of with regards to old beer, mishandled beer, some imperfections in the brewing process that can arise in younger brewing companies or home brewers. Some big ones that I see most often. In older beers, you're going to start to notice, the first thing you're going to notice is a papery sort of oxidation, very similar to chewing on cardboard. And when I was going through sensory training, yeah, absolutely, I chewed on cardboard, I chewed on paper. You have to know what that tastes like if you really want to evaluate beer.
Oh yeah.
As that progresses, it'll get to a wet dog sort of character. And no, I did not like a wet dog.
I was gonna say.
No, but you know that smell, right? That smell is, you can pull that up.
Oh yeah.
Wet dog has a very distinct smell. Some flavors can develop from draft lines that are improperly maintained. Thank God we're here at the Mayor. They do an amazing job at maintaining their draft lines. Never had a beer poured here that was less than what the brewer intended, which is amazing. But that can't be said for a lot of bars. Some bars just don't know. That's one of our jobs, is to educate them and show them how to solve these problems. But characters that can come from mispoured beer through a draft line oftentimes are viscous and buttery.
Okay.
Like movie theater style buttered popcorn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It can also be butterscotch-like, which can be a little bit more pleasant, but it still has a defect. In some beers, it's pleasant, but if you go to, no, I know it too well to be diacetyl, and it's not pleasant to me at all. But it can. I've had some people have been fooled. Which, if you like that character, if you find yourself with an affinity for buttered food, you might enjoy that character. However, that's a defect in the beer. In young beer that hasn't matured properly, hasn't finished through secondary fermentation or conditioning properly, you might notice a green apple Jolly Rancher character, or you might notice a underripe pumpkin character. That's a defect in a beer. There are hundreds, honestly.
No, that makes
and the more
sense.
you know, there are a lot. There are a lot.
Okay.
So we're in northern Colorado. There are so many great brewing companies doing things at a very, very high level. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these defects are theoretical.
Yeah.
When I was taking the Cicerone test, we had to taste through these different off flavors and identify them. But oftentimes, you just don't see them at the breweries you know and love, because they know their process and they're doing it well. Mm-hmm. But if you do go to some younger brewing companies, fermentation is a huge component to the flavor of your beer. Mm-hmm. In Belgian beer, Belgian beer tends to be very fermentation flavor derived. That character of banana or pear or cherry or cinnamon or clove, those are all fermentation derived byproducts, which just happen through yeast and fermentation. And they're ideal, they're ideal if the style intends them to be there. You'll never have a good German Hefeweizen without banana and clove flavors. It's part of that. It needs to be there. However, you have an IPA that tastes like bubblegum, that's probably not intended to be there. And bubblegum is another fermentation flavor.
So a lot of it is knowing, also like you were saying, knowing the beer you're drinking, and then being able to identify if a certain flavor shouldn't belong into that kind of particular style.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. However, some of those flavors are much less pleasant. So that banana flavor, it might be delightful in that beer. And how often are we really judging a beer? You know, I work at a brewery, and I find myself more often than not judging a beer, but I feel like I'm an exception.
Yeah. The average person doesn't. Yeah, they sit there and they enjoy their beer. Yeah.
And the goal is it's like going to a concert. The goal is to not find the flaws in the concert.
Yeah.
The goal is to enjoy the concert.
Yeah.
Same with the beer. The goal is to enjoy the beer. However, with some of this training, sometimes you just can't.
You learn too much for your own good.
you just have to. So some other fermentation byproducts can lead to baby vomit. They can lead to medicinal or Band-Aid or rubber or smoke, clove. Well, clove can be nice, but assertive clove or smoke can be very off-putting. Some of these off flavors really, that's beer that goes down the drain.
Yeah.
In a good brewing company.
Yeah.
That's beer that goes down the drain.
Okay, cool. All right, so should we move on to the next beer?
Let's move on to the next beer.
Yeah.
All right. If you haven't had Fade to Black, have you had Fade?
Never had Fade to Black.
Oh my God! Welcome to the rest of your life.
Oh.
I love this beer.
Really? More
Yes.
than the Left Hand or the Milk Stout?
I mean, do you really love one kid more than the other?
That's true. It's your child, I guess. I get that.
So this is a seasonal beer that's around for the winter.
Okay, seasonal. Okay,
Yes. So it's not as omniprevalent as Milk Stout is, but it's a delightful beer. We've entered this beer into the Great American Beer Festival down in Denver 3 times, and each time it's won a gold medal.
Wow.
It's batting 1,000 at the Great American Beer Festival. It's an
That's
impressive
awesome.
beer. It's a really great beer.
Okay.
So this is a foreign stout style, as opposed to the Milk Stout. This is going to be a drier style. To me, it's going to come across a little bit more complex. Part of that is because it's carbonated rather than nitrogenated. Carbonation is a reactive gas rather than nitrogen, which is pretty inert. Well, it's very inert, and it's on the lazy side.
Okay.
It can kind of subdue some flavor profiles where CO2 will lift them into the air and accentuate
That's a
them.
good way to put it. Okay.
Well, let's check this out. Let's start with the drive-by.
Okay. I have to do that again.
Yeah.
I can
That's different.
smell the dryness. I can already, if that makes sense. You know?
Sure.
Compared to smelling that just now, I can definitely smell the dryness of the beer,
Sure.
which is not bad.
Sure. And oftentimes it's ideal. I'm just going to go straight into the 1 second. I got chocolate and cherry off of the drive-by, but I want to get deeper into this beer.
Okay.
This is a it's a more complex beer. There's more things to look for, more things that will surprise you. That's one of the reasons this beer has continued to be one of my favorites. It surprises me regularly. It's a really nice beer. All right. Through that little 1 second, 2 second inhale, picking up notes of leather, some notes of cherry.
I would say instead of like with the Nitro, I got more milk chocolate. With this one, I got more dark chocolate.
Sure, absolutely. I
Yeah.
totally agree with that.
Which I do like, which is actually really cool because I actually haven't seen many beers where that's more. It's usually milk chocolate. It's
Sure.
not usually dark chocolate, so that's pretty nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Dark chocolate, absolutely. Good call.
Once you said it, yeah, it's hard to dodge the cherry now. It is hard to dodge the cherry smell. It's really nice, especially because like who doesn't like the dark chocolate cherry like, combo, you know?
Yeah. I have a fond memory. Well, scent is a trigger to memories. That's one of the tools to use as an evaluator of wine or beer or coffee or whatever. A scent can take you to a place, and then once you're in that place, you try to figure out why you're there. So my grandfather smoked pipe tobacco regularly, and this is reminiscent of going down to the basement, seeing my grandfather playing his computer, smoking a pipe. So not only is it cherry to me, it's tobacco cherry with a little bit of smoke.
Okay.
There's that character.
Okay. Huh. Interesting.
You're like, this guy's full of it.
Well, I'm not gonna say you get that in the beer, but I'm saying that's what you get, right?
That's what I get in this beer. I get cherry pipe tobacco, absolutely. Dark chocolate, yeah, absolutely. I'm ready to drink this beer.
Yeah, I'm ready too.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
As that cherry pipe tobacco comes through in the
A
flavor,
little bit, yeah.
without a doubt.
And then it definitely ends with a little bit like, authentic cocoa, not necessarily like when there's sugar added.
Yeah.
You get that as an aftertaste where you have like the little bit of the chocolate bitterness of, like of when you have cocoa, if that makes sense, where it gets a little bit bitter at the end.
Absolutely.
I think that's what I'm getting when you're getting more tobacco. I think those are really similar in the flavor.
Sure.
So I could see where you get the tobacco idea.
And I'm not talking about cigarette smoke. I'm talking about tobacco.
No, like tobacco. No, yeah, I get what you're saying. But yeah, I get the bitter, like true cocoa bitterness at the end. I do get that.
And that's really interesting. Remember, that's not going to be judged by IBU, the International Bittering Units or Bitterness Units. It's not going to come through in that number. That number is strictly the hop profile. So that bitterness that comes through, and I absolutely agree, it's there. That bitterness that comes through the dark malt character, that cocoa character, it's there, but that's not going to be judged in that.
Do you have coffee in this beer at all?
No. This is a 4-ingredient beer. The 4 ingredients that we use in beer are water, hops, malt, and yeast. And water, of course. Hops are the spice of beer. Hops are pretty much singly used for beer. Malt is the source of sugars. It's the source of characters that can be bready or caramel or toffee or chocolate or coffee, and then a larger list, of course. And that's also yeast eats those sugars to create alcohol and through fermentation and whatnot. And then also yeast being the 4th. So this only uses those 4. There's a 5th in the milk stout, and that 5th is lactose sugar. Lactose sugar is the sugar found in milk products, and that's added during the boil. That's what's creating that latte experience, as well as both of these have a fuller body, but I feel like the milk stout is a little bit more viscous.
Yeah, I can see that.
Is that fair?
I can see that because you add like that kind of cream flavor to it.
Sure.
I can see that. Yeah.
Sure. The origin of this style was actually English, and it was actually people taking an English brown porter, which is the first commercialized, mass-produced beer, and they were adding milk to it, just like cream to coffee.
Really?
Yeah, that's the story of the origin of this beer.
Find the British to just add some cream to it.
Just add cream to it.
They would do that, right? And then they discover something beautiful from it. So, one thing I get is not as much. I smelled more of that cherry than I tasted that cherry. Would you agree with that?
I kind of do agree with that. I get smoke, like tobacco smoke and tobacco. And then after the swallow, there is a lingering cherry for me.
Okay.
But it's not really in the heart of the beer, as prevalent as it was on the nose.
Okay. Interesting. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, it definitely adds more. It makes it more fun. It makes it more fun to drink beer when you have certain techniques and certain ways of kind of looking at it and kind of dissecting it and stuff like that. So
it's a good time. And if you're not smelling the beer, you're limiting your experience drastically. It depends on who you talk to, but anywhere between 80 and 95% of your perception of the beer, flavor-wise, is coming through aroma. And a great experience. Actually, let's do this. We're gonna plug our nose. We're gonna drink the beer. Let it sit in our mouth for a little bit. Swallow the beer, and then open our nose. All right?
Okay.
Okay. Gotcha.
Whoa.
Flavors just
it shoots at you.
shoot at you.
Wow, that's a good way. Would you say that's a good way to taste beer too?
It is. It is, just for the surprise of how important your nose is.
Yeah, I like
your
that.
nose is vitally important. And if you don't believe me, do that thing.
Yeah.
Do that thing.
That was cool. So, no chocolate, no coffee, no nothing in this beer, just the main 4 ingredients. And then this one, 5 ingredients, but all that comes without actually adding those flavors into it.
Correct.
That's pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Word, well, thank you for doing this. I appreciate that.
My pleasure, Gabe.
Yeah.